Most healthcare education is concerned with definitions, functions, procedures, regulations, and other abstract areas of knowledge. Healthcare professionals study the parts of the body, the things that can go wrong with the different parts of the body, the methods of repairing or managing the body's problems, and the Byzantine systems of finance, law, and science that impinge upon the treatment of these bodies. With all of the things there are to know about the care of bodies, it can be easy to forget that the bodies actually belong to people. It can be easy to forget that the word care in healthcare actually refers to a human relationship. Care is in fact one of the most significant words in a human being's emotional vocabulary. Every aspect of how you relate to something or someone is determined by the question of whether or not you care about that thing or person, and how much you care. Our entire lives are determined by what and who we care about. For this reason, becoming a healthcare professional in the fullest sense of the term means not only learning about health, but also learning about care. The first thing to know about care is that it never takes place in the absence of a person who cares. And the second thing to know about care is that what a person who cares about is always another person. It's true that people can care about money, clothes, books, or chemistry, but I would argue that when people care about these things, what they are really caring about is the way that that thing acts to put them into some kind of relationship with other people who are the true focus of the caring. Money is only meaningful to the extent that it means something to other people. The same is even more true of clothing. Books provide access to the mind of the writer and to a community of other readers in the same way that chemistry puts chemists in touch with other chemists. Only people care, and the only thing people care about is other people. So in order to learn about care, we have to learn about people, which is different from learning about bodies. A body is a thing, but a person is... Wait, what is a person? There are a million different ways of finishing this sentence, and every one of them is right to some extent. But for the purposes of this class, I would propose the following solution. A person is a story. The story of your life, the story of what you did last night, the story of how you met your spouse, the story of how you lost and found yourself, the story of how you got sick, the story of how you got better. Unlike things, humans experience themselves changing in time, and they're able to reflect on the ways that they have changed and on the ways that they have stayed the same, and they can even speculate on how they might continue to change in the future, or how they might continue to stay the same. Thinking about people as stories requires looking at a person in the fourth dimension, the dimension of time. A man walks into a room. We look at him, and our first impression is to see him in 3 dimensions, as a physical presence occupying space here and now. But what if you could see the person as he exists in time, as he existed over the course of his life up to this point, and as he might continue to exist in the future? You would see him as a baby, as a boy full of hopes and dreams, as a young man struggling with self-doubt, as an old man on his deathbed. Now you are seeing the human truth of the man. You are recognizing the similarity between the human story of the man and the story of your own life. Now and only now is it possible to care for him or about him in any meaningful way. Stories, or narrative, to use a fancier word for the same thing, are essential to the development of human relationships. Empathy is defined as the ability to share another person's emotional state of mind. Whereas sympathy has a vaguely voyeuristic connotation, you feel bad for someone, empathy refers to the actual participation in the experience of another person. You feel bad with someone. To empathize with someone is to recognize the similarity between their story and your own, that you are both living and suffering through the same story, the human story of life on planet Earth. For this reason, our ability to be compelled by the stories of other people is closely related to our ability to understand our own lives as an unfolding tapestry of narrative strands. There are many reasons why healthcare professionals can benefit from journaling and narrating their own personal experiences. A recent study concluded that student reflection appears to foster growth in both academic and clinical settings. Through reflection, students become more attuned to themselves and begin to develop an awareness of the temporary limitations and potential applications of their knowledge base. An electronic journal, the Intima, is devoted to a field of narrative medicine, an interdisciplinary field aiming to enhance healthcare through the development of effective communication and understanding between caregivers and their patients. Popular books in which nurses tell their own stories, such as 30 Years in September by Kate Genovese and a memoir of a student nurse by Phyllis L. Brodsky, have promoted awareness of the psychological dynamics at play in healthcare settings and provided valuable insights about how to cope with the emotional intensity of such settings. To me, however, the most significant reason for student nurses to write personal narratives is that doing so can be a way for students to cultivate an awareness of how people are connected to one another through their stories, and of how their own stories parallel the stories embodied in other people. When a person writes a memoir, although it may sound like she is obsessively focused on herself and her own life, she is actually writing away from herself and toward other people, not only by sharing her story with a countless number of readers, but also by expressing the extent to which her own story incorporates all the other characters in her own story, and the extent to which she is a character in other people's stories. The memoir writer has to delve into her own life in order to examine the manner in which her life is interwoven with other lives. It is our lives that connect us, and by focusing in on the circumstances of specific moments in our own lives, we become more cognizant of how these moments were shaped by our relationships with other people and their relationships with us. If a person is a story, then by excavating our stories, to use Stephen King's metaphor, we achieve a better sense of who we are as people, and we may also find it easier to understand other people in terms of the stories that have made them into the people that they are.